Hi, and welcome to a special episode of It's a Mimic. This is episode 300, but as I'm going to explain in a moment here why, this episode ended up ballooning to be incredibly long. Over 6 hours worth of audio. So we're going to break it up over a bunch of different episodes that are going to last the majority of the week. The premise here is that I am sitting down with every single one of the hosts that we have across both the public channels and the Patreon, and even some of the specials that we've done in the past. And the point is to talk with them about 5th edition, now that it's done, as well as moving into a new edition, and how they feel about that. We're also going to take the opportunity to look back a little bit at their time on It's a Mimic, and find out whether or not they're going to be moving forward with the podcast. And spoiler alert, there are a couple of people that will not be. So this is part 3, and I've pulled Kyle back from hiatus to start us off. Yes, the questions will be the same for each host over the week, but I'm hoping that the different answers and different perspectives will provide some insights into how our panel of DMs comes from a wide variety of viewpoints. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into it. Hey Kyle, how you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good, Adam. How are you doing?
I am tired of asking these questions.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for sitting down with me because it is important. I want to hear what you have to say.
Of course.
The first question I have for you, well, let's talk about D&D 5th edition. Now that it's over, how do you feel about Dungeons & Dragons 5th ed as a game?
Pretty good, I guess. I mean, obviously there are some things that I didn't like, and I am excited to try this new edition.
Yeah.
But, I mean, overall, yeah.
Was there a favorite rule or mechanic or design choice that you liked in 5th edition?
I liked how easy it was to pick up and play.
Yeah.
And ready to go. It didn't take a whole lot of work and math to be able to jump into a game. So I think it made it a lot more palatable to new people coming into it.
As someone that dealt with 3.5, you know what it's like to get bogged down by that shit.
Yeah, and I also noticed an increase of interest in people that I never would have taken to play Dungeons & Dragons before that are all of a sudden interested in it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is one of the things that got people interested is how easy it was to pick up and play.
Is there something like your least favorite mechanic or design choice or rule?
I didn't like how similar a lot of the classes were. And it didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of customization in terms of classes, right?
You started to get into it with subclasses later in the edition, but...
Yeah, but even then they felt most of the time cosmetic choices. And so there wasn't a huge amount of customization. I remember 3.5. One of the things I think that really sticks out in my mind is barbarians and fighters could get cleave, and that was a great option to have, right?
Yeah.
And you could, through feats, you could make really unique characters. Sometimes it got broken with how things stacked and min-max players, but there was just a lot of options, especially with
the prestige classes.
Prestige classes, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool function that is missing from 5e, but I think that is also because I'm a hyper nerd in that respect, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, the subclasses were supposed to replace that concept. So instead of just going, here's your base class for 5 levels and then here's a prestige class for 5, it was here's your class and subclass for 10 levels, right? So
yeah.
But there were a lot of ones. Do you have any an example off the top of your head of the 2 classes or subclasses that just fucking felt the same?
Rangers, regardless of the subclass, they got better further in, but there was so many class traits, right? And then it would be here's 3 subclass things, right? And that's it.
And you're only picking the same 5 spells as a ranger over and over and over again. The variety wasn't great. So,
yeah.
Fair enough. Speaking of things that WotC did poorly, they had all sorts of controversies over the last few years. Is there one that sticks out in your mind, and how do you feel about how they handled it?
Oh, I mean, the OGL kind of thing is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that's why Jeff quit D&D.
Yeah,
so.
Fair enough. I mean, how they handled it... They handled it in the only way they could have without major blowback, which I think they already got. But I mean, it was literally they painted themselves into a corner and then went with the only option they could.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with how it ended up. But if it wasn't for the repercussions, they would have stuck with it.
Yeah, absolutely. They didn't learn a lesson.
No.
They unlearned a bad lesson. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are you excited? You said you're excited for the new updated rule set.
Yeah.
What's one thing you hope they change?
Customization. Same thing, right? I hope they lean more into feats than they did in this previous edition. Because I think, you get rid of prestige classes and focus more on subclasses. But I think you can make up for the lack of customization through good feats.
Well,
right?
Feats are different because now they're doing like I forget what they're called, but you like starting feats.
Yeah, background feats.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and then other ones you can get later. There's also weapon masteries, and from what I've seen so far, and I haven't dug through the PHP enough yet, but it looks like the subclasses seem to be more varied and more bombastic in their differences.
Yeah, I would say that too.
Plus, leaning into backgrounds in a big way.
Yeah. So I think it has gotten better, and I am excited to see what they have in the expansion modules as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to reserve judgment, but
Sure,
so far
fair.
they made strides in the right direction of what I'm looking for.
Fair enough. What point do you figure you're going to want to transition into the new rule set?
As soon as there is a majority in the party I'm playing with, right? I am happy to change over as soon as possible, but I'm also not quick to force it.
Sure. And $70 for a player's handbook can be a lot for 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
right.
Now that we look backwards at 5th ed, let's look back at It's a Mimic because we're going to change things moving forward. So, do you remember your first episode and what it was like?
I do remember my first episode. It was...
You're the first person to say yes. Everyone else like, I don't fucking know. Fever dream.
Yeah. Sahuagin.
Was it Sahuagin?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sahuagin. And that whole debate. What was it? I think it was the Coral Smasher.
Oh, could be.
Was mine.
That was part of the mob mentality episodes that we were doing at like the COVID.
Yeah, it was during COVID.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking to record myself and terrifying listening to myself being recorded.
I cannot imagine how that was a big ask from you guys, and most of you stepped in having never recorded anything before, and there was no like warm up or anyone holding your hand. It was just like, here's 3 pages of breakdown. Good luck.
I was also asked to pretend to be a reporter. Which just like was an extra level on the whole thing.
You could thank Dan for that.
Yeah,
I liked that idea, but it was awfully cheesy.
Yeah.
So, and not everybody,
Dan.
not everybody did it, and that's why he's fired now.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of your favorite memories about your experience on the podcast?
Okay, so I think when we tried to do the shit show that was the Christmas one shot where
that's your favorite?
Yeah, me, Dave, and Megan were DMing, and it was a riot, right? Like, because it was such a joke, and I made Terry so mad with one of my accents.
And James came in on an attack helicopter for some fucking reason.
I think that's how he introduced his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great for me because I had no emotional investment in how it actually went.
Yeah.
So it was just, we had a fun time.
Yeah,
we were laughing the whole time.
What's been the most challenging? Look, honestly, someone else said that was their least favorite. So, like, what was the most challenging or upsetting part of doing a podcast so far?
Was challenging or upsetting?
Yeah.
I guess just letting go and like trying to be more in the moment when I'm recording and not stressing myself out about what I'm doing and what I'm saying and having it all like pre-written down and needing to go in an exact order and being able to just go in a flow with conversation.
Your scripts were so good and your language was better than most other people's scripts. Like you were using adverbs as nobody else was. Right? Like you were trying to paint a picture and getting a point across, and it was really well done. You were clearly one of the writers on this podcast, right?
Yeah, but the problem is that it took me out of the actual conversation, right? Like if somebody wanted to talk about something that I said and they interrupted me while I was giving it, it kind of like threw me off.
I remember having a conversation with myself and be like, all right, leave Kyle alone. Like, let him get through this shit.
But that's not what this is supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be having a conversation, supposed to be able to give and back and forth.
How long did it take you to fucking let go of that?
I don't know. I think I managed it like a year ago. And I think I've been doing this for 4, almost 5 at this point.
Yeah, definitely at least 4 because you were in like episode 119 or something. This is episode 300, so
yeah.
So yeah,
I had to stress myself out so bad that I almost gave myself a mental breakdown about doing the prep for this show.
It was
to be able to be like, you know what, maybe I just shouldn't care as much.
Was it the Dragon Gods episode?
Yeah, yeah. When I had to do, yeah, that's exactly it. That was my turning point.
I remember that distinctly. The look in your eye when you came in to record that, I was like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I felt like that meme that has Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the
Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah.
So
there's like 4 different timelines of where he is,
and aliases in different worlds and campaign settings. So here's an unfair question: who has been your favorite host to record with? And you can't say me because that's self-serving.
Who has been my favorite? Maybe Megan.
Yeah.
A second favorite memory is the Mary Fuck Kill on the Demon Lords.
Megan is often my favorite mess of the week. Yes. She keeps it.
Yeah. She definitely like left field.
Yeah. Incidentally, this will be your 82nd episode that you have been on. I keep stats, right?
Yeah. Wow, surprise.
Right. If someone listens to only the Kyle episodes back to back, they will get to listen to 5.4 days.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's not just your voice, that's just the episodes you're on, but like, yeah, that's 130 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild, hey?
Yeah.
In your opinion, what's the episode that you were the proudest of being a part of?
No idea.
No?
They're all pretty much a fever dream.
Was there one that you did prep for that you're like, I fucking nailed that one?
Not one that I can point to specifically. No.
So I'm going to just assume then that you were ashamed of it all and we'll move forward.
It's just basically I leave here and then I try to forget every moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, my memory is too poor to be able to
That's fair.
Tell you that.
And it has been a blur, a lot of the episodes.
Yeah.
There are some episodes that I look back on and I go, I have no idea what we said in this episode. And I built the breakdown. I have no idea what we said.
Yeah. Like you said, I've been part of 5.4 days of recording.
Right.
So like, I can't remember what I ate yesterday.
Sure,
I can't tell you what I'm most proud of when I recorded here.
So we're going to head into this transition that I keep threatening over these 2 episodes. But it's a good jumping on point for people. It's a good jumping off point for people. Are you planning on staying into this next iteration, or are you going to take a moment and announce your retirement from It's a Mimic?
You're going to have to drag this microphone from my cold, dead hands.
You know what? Love to hear it. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the always lovely and usually infuriating Miaca.
Hello, Miaca. How are you?
Hi, Adam. I'm good. How are you?
I'm just fine. Oh, funny meeting you here.
It's been ages.
I do want to thank you for sitting down with me on a freaking work day at, 10 o'clock at night almost, to sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah, disrupted my routine.
I'm so sorry. I will never ask you to do anything ever again.
As you should.
I'm hoping this can be relatively quick so you can go back to enjoying your break from recording, because it's been a while for you, hey?
Yeah, it has. Jeez. Yep.
You managed to sidestep the majority of the Drow episodes, and so Megan and Casey and Peps and Elwyn have not had a break, but you are sitting here, feet up, drinking margaritas.
Had a big year.
Yeah, it was like something important happened in October. I'm not entirely certain what it was.
Yeah, it led up to something, and I've kind of been like, smooth sailing ever since. So, telling you, just a busy year.
Well, we do get to put some of the stresses, especially in the wake of the wedding, to bed. And one of the other things we get to put to bed is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
Didn't know where you were going with that.
It's not that kind it's not the kind of Dungeon Master podcast. So
got you.
We are going to be done with 5th edition now as a podcast. We've got a series that's kicking off to get us through this transitional period moving forward. But for the most part, we're wrapped with 5th ed. All of the hosts except 2. So how do you feel about it as a game? You've played other role-playing games since, right? You had to play L5R and you dabbled with Call of Cthulhu for a while. How do you feel about D&D 5th edition compared to other tabletop games?
To me, I feel like this D&D 5th edition brought everyone together. Like, I mean, you could maybe blame it on the pandemic, blame it on TikTok and social media, but this was the game for me. Anyways, it for me as someone who stepped into 5th edition pretty much like how long ago? A few years back when you introduced it to me. Like, this was the edition that kind of like, I hate to say mainstream. There's probably a bunch of people rolling their eyes at me right now, but like it was
No,
made D&D popular.
You're not wrong. I mean, this was the edition that Critical Role and Stranger Things, right?
Right.
Like they did a crossover with Rick and Morty. Like this is the mainstream edition. It's as probably the most mainstream since Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like lots of people are playing. So do you have a favorite rule or mechanic or design choice for 5th edition? When you think about the other games, right? Like Call of Cthulhu with their percentile dice, or the L5R building the character with your advantages and disadvantages and building it that way. D&D has a whole bunch of weird little design quirks and things. Was there something that you really like? Like, oh yeah, okay, I like this thing.
I'll tell you what I like. I like when either my party member or I we're using like a thing, like whether it's our barbarians about to rage or just some type of thing where we can use a bunch of dice for damage or something like that. I just like kind of collecting all the dice and rolling and counting it up. I think that's my favorite part of like I was successful and now I can roll all the dice under this spell because I am powerful enough to do some damage when I'm successful at it,
Okay, so I have to laugh I muted myself for a second because I was laughing. That is the most honest player shit that I have ever heard. Everyone else that I've talked to so far has been like, well, the advantages and disadvantages, or I really like the mechanic with the backgrounds. And you're like, I want to roll dice. I just want to roll dice. And to be fair, on a lot of other games, you don't get to roll a like double fistful of dice like you do in some instances in D&D. So I fucking love that answer. That was hilarious and a great answer.
I remember when I first started playing, and you're playing a drow named Elise, and you were telling me she's an assassin, and this is what she can do. She's a level this, and I was like, wow, I'm not that high level yet. But like when you gave me her card, and you're like, okay, she was successful in the sneak attack. Here are her this is what she can do with her sneak attack. And collecting all the dice for it, it was my like favorite thing to do. And this was when like we were playing one-on-one. So like I kind of played like all the characters, or I rolled dice for like all the characters, or well for most of them. And so that is like a big memory of mine, being like my character being up in the tree and like and then Elise did her sneak attack, and then all the dice I got to roll for damage, and that was just a lot of fun. That part of 5th edition of like kind of seeing yourself being successful in gameplay is what I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of the other ones you're just trying to not fail, but this one you are rolling dice and it feels fucking good.
Yeah.
Is there a least favorite rule, mechanic, or design choice for 5th ed?
I don't like being exhausted. I don't like walking.
Which is hilarious because you're not actually fucking doing anything. But no, the exhaustion mechanic can be scary, right?
Yeah, like I don't like the whole exhaustion thing like at all. I'll be honest, it doesn't. I mean, it affects me, but like at the same time, I'm just like I don't know. I don't like seeing it with others, especially if like I need someone to like be on their game.
Well, you were also playing solo for a lot of your D&D career, where exhaustion was crippling. Sudden disadvantage when you're the only player is scary, right?
Yeah. I've been struggling. I don't think I've ever played a 15 or higher. No, 12 or higher.
Level 15, you mean?
Yeah, level 15 or higher.
Well, our campaign is going to level 20. You'll get there.
Yeah.
So speaking of things that fuck up, Wizards of the Coast has gone through a lot of controversy in the last few years. What's the one thing that sticks out to you the most, and how do you feel about how it was handled?
I'll be honest, I didn't really get into the weeds of what was going on, but like I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was people like dropping, saying they weren't going to play D&D anymore and we're talking about quitting, and like people got really, really upset about it.
A lot of people
And
got upset about a lot of different controversies, but that's mostly the OGL issue, the open gaming license, when they were going to fuck with people's third-party shit, right?
yeah, like I'll be honest, that didn't really affect me because in my mind I'm like I'm gonna just keep playing this anyway. I'm just gonna have fun. I feel bad for those people with the third party stuff, but yeah.
You are a far more casual player than a lot of the people that are online ranting about this stuff because they're literally creating content, right? And then having that
Mhm.
taken away. So, but yeah, we saw a lot of people. We lost a host over it, actually. So,
Yeah.
that was a big deal. Are you excited for the new updated rules at all? 5.5 coming?
I am, but I'm like a bit hesitant because I'm like I'm still learning D&D and how like, working with the mechanics and the rules and stuff like that. And so now it's like, here's a new one. It's like, so I'm kind of like nervous to see how things are gonna play out and what's changed and what stayed the same. But I'm at the same time I'm very interested to see what's to come, and how things are gonna change.
Well, the good news is that it seems like a lot of the character building, which is your least favorite fucking part, because
Ugh.
there's so much math and you don't like doing all that writing, but all
But
that,
can I also say something? I'm
sure.
sorry. I'm going to get this out in this episode. No, I don't like doing the math. No, I just don't like doing the math. But I just don't like how there's no step-by-step instruction for building your character. I'm
There
like,
is now. The new player's handbook does that.
thank you. Jesus. It's like tell me what to do with step 1, tell me what to do with step 2. Don't just like build your character, but you're going to go from page 16 and then go back to page 8. Like just tell me what to do so I can just do it. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, a lot of the stuff we've seen at the time of this recording, we don't even have the monster manual yet. It's just been the PHB and the DMG, and it seems
Mhm.
very, very streamlined. And it's the formatting of the book itself has been designed now to be user friendly, and so that you can find absolutely everything you need. There's even a rules glossary in the back for all the little stuff that you need to look up, like how do I grapple again? Instead of having to flip to like page 193, you just go to the rules glossary. It's in there. There's like
Perfect.
there's a lot of shit to make it a lot easier and a lot more user friendly. This is the
Mhm.
most user friendly I've ever seen any player's guide or player's handbook. So,
Sounds like it's going to be my new best friend.
is there anything that you hope that they're going to change besides that in the new rules?
I mean, again, I'm very much like character focused and, story focused. So I'm looking to see how they kind of expanded like warlock patrons. I'm kind of hoping that maybe that we got a few new patrons or they expanded on the kinds of patrons you can have.
Well,
Just yeah.
the player's handbook is not really the place to find that for warlock patrons. Some each one of the classes so far has 4 subclasses, and most of them are rehashes and updates for stuff that was in 5th edition. In the
Mm,
original player's handbook for 5th edition, we got Archfey, Great Old One, and Fiend. Now they've
mhm.
included Celestial, right?
Okay.
Which is one you play. Right now, we don't need another book for that. As we get more books coming out, there will be new ones that come because some of the other classes got new stuff.
Mm.
So,
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Just seeing what the characters and or really what the races and what the classes look like.
the other thing is they've changed. It's no longer races now; it's species.
Species. Perfect.
So, at what point do you think you're going to transition to the new rule set?
Honestly, whenever whenever our table is ready, Adam.
I can tell you this. I've told all the others already. We're going to see 5th edition through because of the. I think you are the only subclass that carries over. Everybody, all the other characters have subclasses that are not in the player's handbook for 5.5. So we're going to finish 5th edition for this campaign. So it's probably going to be a year and a half yet. So we will be podcasting 5.5, playing 5th edition, and all of our little one shots and everything else will be 5.5 starting in 2025. So,
Okay.
but let's stop looking at the future for a moment and let's continue to look backwards. Besides just 5th edition, you and everyone else that is in this episode have had Dungeons and Dragons also be about podcasting.
Mhm.
Do you remember your first episode and what it was like on It's a Mimic?
Oh my gosh. No, I don't. I don't remember.
Oh, you don't? Your first episode of It's a Mimic was a Deep Dark Irradiance.
Oh yeah, duh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and everybody was laughing about my suitcases.
How was that for you? Because you had never really done tabletop role playing before like that.
I'm gonna say it was like a lot of fun. Honestly, Dan created like a great story. I love the story. I was freaked out. I was having none of it. But it was also great for me to actually work at a table with friends because that same year you and I started playing one-on-one. But yeah, it was a lot of fun for me at the time. It was wild and it was just crazy. It was fun to see how deep people can get into these characters, especially if you're comfortable role playing around others. And I don't know, it's like seeing a story come to life, and I really love that. That's how I felt. I felt like I am with my people. This is what I always want to do.
So, what's your favorite memories about the experience of doing It's a Mimic?
Oh my gosh, the memories. Well, now that you like freaking reminding me, Deep Darker Radiance was funny. Kind of watching you be like a player and going through that. That was so fun.
Oh, I had freaking opinions about DM style, but at the same time, Dave and I would not stop fucking around.
Yeah, it was so funny. What other memories? Working with the ladies. That was great. Doing the Undead series and stuff like that, and kind of going off about that. I was so nervous about doing it, but Casey and Megan and Elwin and Pepperina, they're all great. And, we came up with our own little inside jokes and stuff like that. Effing Gregory, goodness gracious, I gotta bring him back. I'll be bringing him back in the new year. Yeah.
Do you have all right now?
Oh, Theros, Theros, that was great.
Talking to Casey about it, she was so happy to record that with you and that both of you like coming into your own and really owning that series. She said by partway through, she was often forgetting that she was doing a podcast. She was just talking with you, and it was so great.
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely love exploring Theros with her.
So on the flip side, time to bare your soul, tell the God's honest truth. What's been the most challenging and upsetting part of your history with It's a Mimic?
How personal am I allowed to get?
As personal as you're comfortable with. It's Dan's scrotum, right? Like that's the issue. That's the problem.
No. The problem I've had with It's a Mimic has been the attention that it takes from me. No, we stop. Cut that out.
No, absolutely not. That's sticking. Gee,
No.
whatever do you mean, wife?
It's a Mimic takes a lot of your time. And I'm so proud and I am so happy and stuff like that. But there's some times where I'm just like, ugh, the podcast. But at the same time, I know it's so weird. I'm on the podcast, but I'm also like your partner outside of the podcast, and I'm there to kind of help you work through it and stuff like that. But I can also have seen the podcast kind of leave you drained. And then at the same time, I see how much passion and how much you love this podcast. So I have such a weird relationship with this podcast. It's very emotional.
If you take me out of the equation, what's been the most challenging or upsetting part?
Sometimes I don't feel like I'm an expert, even though you say I am, and I know I am. But I feel like sometimes like, well, maybe that's not the idea I should have went with, or
You have got a fairly healthy dose of imposter syndrome.
Yep.
When it comes to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I at the time of this recording, I have only done this with one other person. But you know how I keep stats and I track stuff and I'm really OCD about a lot of crap.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to be surprised to learn that I track hosts' involvements on episodes and whatnot. We have had 18 hosts. Do you know where you sit? If one being me, who's been on more episodes than anyone else, where do you figure you land in that order of 1 to 18? 18 being the least. How many episodes? Like, where do you figure you land?
I probably land somewhere after 15. Right.
At the time of this recording, of the episodes that have been released, you have been on 47 episodes for a total of 6.92% of the airtime of It's a Mimic. That means that if someone wants to only listen to Miaca episodes and change them back to back, it would be 2.7 days of content.
Really?
You have done 64 hours and 56 minutes. So the next time you feel the imposter syndrome kick in, you realize that you are in the top 2/3 of listeners.
Hey. I like that.
Sorry, not of listeners, of hosts. The top
Yeah,
2/3. Yeah. So does that make you feel a little better?
Yeah, it does. Wow. Start like to think if you were to put up a playlist of just Miaca episodes like on Spotify, and that means people would start at Deep Dark of Radiance and work their way through. That's interesting growth. I would honestly like to hear that.
And that doesn't even include this episode or any of the stuff that's been recorded that hasn't been released yet, right?
Right, yeah. Like that'd be so interesting.
So who has been your favorite host to record with? And you can't say me.
Oh my gosh, my favorite host to record with.
I want you to know that everybody has hated this question, and then as soon as we stop recording, they want to change their answer. Be like, no. Oh, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Everyone's being so gracious about this. But off the top of your head, pressed for an answer right now, who's your favorite host to record with?
Off the top of my head, I would say Megan.
Is there reasoning behind that?
I need to be in a campaign with Megan being the DM. She
killed it for L5R, hey?
Oh my gosh, not just L5R. She did great with L5R. That was so much fun. But I need to be in a D&D campaign with Megan as a DM because Megan has just so many great ideas. Every single episode I've been on with Megan, when it came time to talk about role-playing combat or, where we have that one-on-one discussion, she will just throw out an idea of how she would use a monster or how she would use the situation. And I'm like, oh my God, I would love to play that. Listening to her put together little situations and how she would use things, it is honestly a lot of fun to sit with and listen to. And I was about to call her Clacy. Jesus. Let me pause so you can edit that out.
I'm not going to.
Oh God. Okay.
Just keep rolling.
Casey is definitely a close second. They are neck and neck. But off the top of my head, the first person who came to mind was Megan.
In your opinion, what's the episode that you were the proudest of being a part of?
Oh man, the proudest?
If you turn to your mom and say, hey, I am a part of this project, I am so proud of it, would you listen to an episode?
Oh man, I can't really pinpoint one. I remember there was an episode where we were all kind of tired and we were just cracking up our way through it. It was one of the earlier ones I was on, but I don't really remember. But
you mean of Undead?
Yeah, of Undead. It was an Undead episode. I think it was the skeleton one.
Oh, with Skeletal coming up.
With Skeletal, and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? That was just funny. But probably one of the Theros episodes. I feel like towards the end of Theros, once we had the law of the land and we were getting into the outskirts and stuff like that, I feel like those were some of my best episodes, especially the last Theros episode.
So I know the answer to this already, but are you planning on moving forward with the podcast? I'm giving everyone the opportunity with episode 300 to kind of renegotiate with themselves and their personal lives and work on whether or not they want to move forward. Are you looking forward to moving forward, or are you going to announce your retirement from It's a Mimic?
Dramatic pause.
Every one of you thinks that you're so fucking funny when you do it. You're like the fifth person to be like, well, and then trying to lead people on. You're just a bunch of dicks.
Love you, babe. Yeah, I will be coming back.
I'm really excited.
I will be continuing my journey.
I'm excited because you and I have got a thing that we're planning on the Patreon, which I am really stoked about. As I've been doing the prep for it, I've been learning a bunch of shit, and I'm like, this is so up Miaca's alley, and she's going to have opinions about it. So I'm excited to move forward. Plus, all your work with the ladies still on a couple of projects. So I'm stoked about that too.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got the opportunity to sit down with Charlie, who patrons will remember from the Homebrew Pantheon series and the episode on the Amazon series Legend of Vox Machina. And everyone else will know him from our episode on Honor Among Thieves. Okay, now I'm with Charlie. Hi, Charlie, how are you?
Hello.
Most people that will recognize your voice are going to recognize you off the Patreon because you did the Pantheon series with Casey and I, and you've done a handful of conversations about Vox Machina, the TV show, right? So you've been around on there, and you've actually done you haven't done the least amount of episodes, which I'm sure surprises you.
That does surprise me.
Yeah, there are people that have done fewer than you. So anyway, I want to thank you for coming by after work.
Yeah.
After working all night and sitting down to chill out and have this conversation. So let's talk really quickly about the fact that 5th edition is over. It's ending now.
Mm.
So now that it's over, how do you feel about D&D 5th edition as a game system?
I really like it. It's been a lot of fun.
It was your first game system, right?
No, I played a little bit of 3.5 with you.
Yeah,
but not enough.
That didn't go far, though.
No, it didn't go very far. So, I mean, I barely remember 3.5 now because I've been playing 5e for so long.
Yeah. Would you say it's your primary system that you've played?
Yeah, definitely.
Has there been a favorite rule or mechanic or design choice that you really like about playing 5th edition?
Ooh, that's difficult. I like reactions a lot, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something you get to do in, like, board games very often. And, like, that's the only other type of games I really play. I don't play video games or anything like that. So the only other kind of system that I work with are board games, and they don't do anything like that. You can't do anything
On someone else's turn.
turn.
Yeah.
You can't fuck with someone else.
and I know how much you like silvery barbs.
Well, that's just perfect, and you know it. It's too much, and everyone knows that.
Is there a least favorite rule, mechanic, or design choice? The thing that crops up and you're like, oh, fuck this nonsense.
I know there is one. Oh, I know what it is. I don't like the way that they have bringing out and stowing weapons. I ran into that being a big problem. It's annoying and complicated, and it doesn't state it obviously enough in the book.
The fact that you have to do it, like, it's part of your movement phase.
During movement or an attack action, or so if you want to draw and stow multiple weapons, if you're throwing multiple weapons and you have a lot of attacks, you have to balance that, like, so crazily.
Mm-hmm.
I had a cue card with lines on it and little gems I would move back and forth.
Just to keep track of...
Just to keep track of what I could do and what was where.
Yeah.
Which I ended up having a lot of fun with because, I mean, I did research and I made a cue card with little things on it, so I figured it out. But I can see how that would be really frustrating because it was frustrating for me at first.
Yeah. So Wizards of the Coast has gone through a lot of controversy in the last few years. What's the one thing that sticks out to you the most, and how do you feel about how it was handled?
Out of the controversy?
Yeah, they've had lots of controversies.
How do you pick one?
What's the one you feel like you should address now that you've got a platform for it?
I never paid enough attention, I don't feel like. I just saw that they fucked stuff up, and I went, well, I don't buy anything directly from them, so I don't know if I can speak on any of their issues.
Fair enough. You're what I consider to be a casual player, right? Like, as much as you love it, you're not in D&D Beyond theory crafting 10,000 different...
No, I mean, I recently got into making my own spells and stuff like that, but everything I do, Wizards of the Coast doesn't have to be a part of it.
Yeah, you do enough homebrew stuff on your own, right?
Yeah, I like homebrew a lot, so...
So it's easy for you to cut it out. Like, once you get the basic rule set, it's fine for you to say, hey, I'm going to do what I want over here.
Yeah, I know how to play 5e well enough that I don't really need anything else, I guess.
Well, we're moving forward. Are you excited for the new rules updates?
No, because if I want to do anything with it, now I need to learn more stuff.
Yeah.
So everything I just said is now useless for that.
So
I just got to the point where I've consumed enough 5e media and played enough of it where I feel like I know, if not all of the rules, all of the important ones for an actual game.
Yeah.
for pretty much all of the classes too. I have a pretty good idea of what they can do and what they can't do. But
it's
now
all changing
now
now.
it's all different. So
Welcome to Edition Wars.
yeah.
Which we get to go through. This is my like fourth rodeo on this one.
Boo.
Yay. And you'll be calling them opportunity attacks instead of attacks of opportunity for the next, like, it's going to be wild.
Whatever, you get what I mean.
Yeah. What's one thing that you hope to see, one thing you want them to change in a new edition? Like, it's a good opportunity to redo shit from scratch. What do you hope they address?
Who gets what spells? As they've released more books in 5e, who has access to what type of spells has gotten really... It doesn't make any sense for some of them. Like, some classes you think would have access to a certain spell, they just don't. And it's just because it was released later and they didn't think about it, or...
It's a holdover from
Yeah.
AD&D, back when they had different classes and subclasses and like, yeah. I know that some of that's addressed, but I don't think it's fixed though as much as you want it to be.
It's a difficult thing to deal with, because even some subclasses you would think they would get different spells than other ones.
Yeah, than what they got, yeah.
And that's hard, I'm sure, to deal with all of that. But I know I talked to you about shadow sorcerers having no access to shadow spells, even though wizards have them.
Yeah, that's fucking wild.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, do you know when you're planning to transition to the new rule set?
Whenever we do for our game.
Yeah. Are you looking at maybe poking at it yourself in another capacity outside of our homebrew game?
There's probably some classes I'd check out just because they're my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, I don't think I'm going to start actually looking into it unless we start making the transition over. Then I'll read all of it if I have to.
Okay, that's fair. Transitioning for a moment into talking about podcasting.
Yeah.
Okay. You've been with It's a Mimic now for over a year.
Woo.
Do you remember your first episode and what it was like?
No.
No?
I have a really bad memory. I don't remember what was first. We did the Vox Machina stuff first?
I thought the first one that we did was a D&D movie.
Oh, D&D movie was first. Yeah.
Does that ring true?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's true.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was like being on mic for the first time?
Dan was coughing a lot, so I didn't feel too bad about myself.
As long as someone else fucks up more. It's like, I don't have to be faster than the bear, I need to be faster than Dan coughing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was a lot of us, so, and I knew everyone.
You have sat in this room with me, dozen times, if not more at this point. Do you have a favorite memory or experience of doing the podcast?
I don't know. I really like doing the Pantheon stuff with you and Casey.
Yeah, we
That
had a
was
blast
fun.
with that,
Yeah. That got weird and fun.
Gods be fucking was the
Gods
point.
be fucking was most of the point.
What's been the most challenging or upsetting part of being a part of It's a Mimic?
I know I've been interested in doing more stuff for the podcast, but my schedule just doesn't make it feasible or fair for either of us.
Yeah, I have been struggling with scheduling with a lot of people for a long time, but yours has been egregiously bad.
Yeah, my hours are totally different.
All of the time,
All
and
of
you
the
tend
time.
to work nights, which is not appropriate for when you are getting ready to go to work, whereas we are sitting down to record 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been a challenge to get you here. Now I usually ask who's been your favorite host to record with, but considering you've only recorded with me and Casey in any sort of, consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people you can't choose me.
Casey.
Yeah, Casey, clearly.
I would have said Casey anyways.
Sorry, yeah, sure. Thanks. You dick.
You're welcome.
So, my question for you is, who would you like to record with?
Dan.
Why? Because he'll cough and make you feel better?
I just find it easy to mess with Dan, so I would feel more comfortable.
Yeah, you and Dan have that back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I'm used to bantering with him to a certain degree.
You banter with Dave pretty well.
Yeah, that's true.
In your opinion, is there an episode that you are the proudest of being a part of?
I'm proud of the insane amount of Vox Machina lore I know.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So I feel like I did a pretty good job.
On that episode, yeah.
Yeah.
we're heading into a big transitional period for the next few months, which you know about. We've talked about at this point off mic. We're revamping our processes and we're going to refocus on content to focus on conversations that we want to have that the listeners are more engaged with. That'll be more fun. Are you excited about moving forward? Because this is a jumping on and off point for a lot of our hosts. I've given them the option to walk away, no problems, go focus on other parts of their lives, or do you want to continue moving forward?
Yeah, it sounds fun to me.
Yeah, you want to do more.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the others are sitting there dying, going, I do too much.
Yeah, as soon as I have the time, I'd love to.
All right, well, thanks for sitting down for this one. We're going to jump into the next host.
Cool.
And we're wrapping up this episode with Casey.
Hi, Casey. How are you today?
I am great. How are you, Adam?
I am tired of all of this.
Asking the same things many a time.
Many, many times. However, the answers have all been interesting, so I'm glad that I'm asking. But I feel like I could just set up a tape recorder with my voice at this point. I want to say thank you for sitting down with me for these, because it's a little bit weird and a little bit awkward, but I've been away for months getting married, so it's fun to come back. So,
Yeah, it was weird coming here after a long time.
how long has it been since you've recorded here?
Like 3 months at least.
Oh, well, I was away for 3 months. When was the last time you were in this room recording? It must have been
Shit. It might have been like,
June,
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a while. Everybody's like returning to their old high school, right? Like,
Yeah. It's like, oh, I remember this route.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while.
all the way up the damn mountain.
I know.
So let's talk real quick about 5th edition because we're wrapping up. So we are going to stop being a 5th edition podcast sometime in the next few months and transition to 5.5. We've got a lot of plans about what we're going to do moving forward, but first I want to look backwards. So now that it's over, how do you feel about D&D 5th edition as a game?
Well, I'm probably a little biased because this is where I started my D&D like adventure, was in 5th edition. So I feel like I probably feel the same about this transition as you did going from like 3.5 to 5 to 5th edition, where it's like,
No, I had to do 4th edition and Pathfinder, and I went from 3.0 to 3.5. I've been through
oh
this
yeah,
a
you've
number
been
of
doing
times.
it a number of times.
Yeah.
This is my first time. So I'm feeling like I'm excited for the new things because I've like looked through the new book and it's interesting. But 5th edition will always just have a place in that this is where I started, and thinking that I won't be buying any like nieces and nephews this edition in the future, it will be 5.5, is a little bit like, oh, you won't get the book that I started with.
Well, remember, you can always find the player's handbooks. Even the 3.5 player's handbook is available. People are selling them online. And you still have how many books? Like, you can still play it.
I know. But the youngins, they're like, oh, but this new one, let's do this new one.
Yeah. There's this really cool new book.
It's like, but this one. But yeah, no, it's exciting to have something new, but yeah.
When it comes to the game itself, you've dabbled with Call of Cthulhu, you've dabbled with Legend of the Five Rings. Has there been other ones that you've played, other tabletop role-playing games, or is that it so far?
Yeah, it's been that, aside from 5th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's been your favorite rule or mechanic or design that 5th edition has had, and why?
This one's also hard because
it's the only one you know,
yeah,
right?
yeah, so I can't really see what like it brought new compared to old editions.
Yeah.
But at least for somebody who started like learning D&D just from this edition, I loved the outline tables that they did through the book for for your characters and the classes to help, because I am like a strict rule follower, and so I liked just how they set that up so that you could clearly see how you created your character. And then I loved what they did with wizards because that was my favorite class. And so
Really? I didn't know that, because you've been so many classes over the years.
yeah, wizards is probably like my favorite outline because of how they kept expanding the the spell lists
Yeah.
with all of the new books. So I would say that's one thing that I loved about the evolution of 5th edition was they gave you a really great like breadth of spells, and then they kept adding more with different books that they came out with.
It's so funny because that was the criticism of 3.5 was because they were releasing so many books so rapid fire and they all had new spells. It became what everyone was calling bloat. And we all had to struggle with, well, who owns that book? Can we even use this spell? Well, how come that guy has access to it but I don't? Because he's got more money than me? So
Right.
he could buy the books. So it was a real issue back in the day. 4th edition, I don't think ever ran into that problem so much. They released a bunch of books, but I think 5th edition has, I want to say, without even looking up, like from my experience, I feel like 5th edition has twice as many books.
Probably.
So I'm surprised that I like all of the expansions and stuff, because a lot of people are like, no, I want it in a compendium of the, like, I have sitting here the 3.5 spell compendium, where after a while they just brought it all into one big ass book, and even then they kept publishing after that. So but yeah, the spells kept being interesting, and I didn't feel the power creep, with the exception of Silvery Barbs. I didn't feel the power creep the way that I did in other editions.
Yeah. I maybe didn't like that if I was a rule follower that certain classes didn't get certain spells, because that was somewhat annoying sometimes. But I get it. They're trying to be more specific.
Yes, and it's always been that way.
I know.
You're just lucky that elves don't have to be wizards anymore. Or wizards don't have to be elves. That was the thing. Like, all wizards were elves in original D&D.
Oh yeah, that's limiting.
Yes, and the idea of subclasses was not a thing. Just straight up wizard, here you go. So, what's your least favorite rule or mechanic or design choice of 5th edition? What gets in your way?
So what I found most challenging, I'm going maybe slightly adjacent to this question, is I struggled with figuring out backstory and background, or like I'm not one of the ones that comes up with a wild idea for a character and then makes it fit into like races and classes. I look at the races and classes and then pick what I think looks interesting, and probably a few months into playing that character, I figure out the real backstory that that character is gonna have. And
but I love that. Like, that's the way that a lot of players do. Charlie does it that way too, right? Like, he'll show up with a bit of a backstory and then discover the character as he goes, right?
yeah, like I can latch on to a few things and then like that's all I got. And so then after a while, then the character kind of evolves. And I found that there wasn't a lot to work with in this book. And to be honest, the first probably 2 characters I built out of this book, I completely missed the backgrounds piece.
Oh,
and
yeah?
like I didn't even include it in my build. And then somebody's like, well, what's your background? And I'm like, well, I can't really figure that out. I have to think about it more. And they're like, no, like, which one did you pick? And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh my God, it gives you so many more things.
Yeah. Well,
and so I missed it.
Well, that's going to be something that you're going to like with the new edition, because backgrounds are hard baked in, right? I also think that you're absolutely right. They filled in a lot of those gaps in Xanathar's. They've got a whole how to create your life massive section in there with all sorts of random tables and shit. However, if you don't own the book, you're still left in the lurch, right? So.
Yeah. And like I only had the player's handbook for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was happy with it. It gave me enough to learn. There was so much to learn anyway.
Yeah.
But that was one piece where I felt like I don't even know where to begin, and there seems to be just a little bit of like half mentions about different like realms or areas you could be from, but don't really understand what that means, and that was kind of it. So yeah, I feel like it had a long way to go for that.
Well, the new player's handbook doesn't get a whole lot into realms. I mean, it talks about the multiverse very briefly. But the DMG goes hard into Greyhawk, right? So we're going to see a whole lot of changes.
Cool.
But before we talk about changes, let's talk about another kind of thing that was difficult. And that is how Wizards of the Coast had a whole lot of controversies in the last few years. Mm-hmm. Is there any one of them that sticks out to you? And how do you feel about how they handled it?
I feel like they were very corporate, as expected, which I don't know. It's kind of like I'm not surprised at what they did and then how they handled it. They kind of just ignored it and then put out a couple statements and then waited for time for people to forget about it.
Yeah.
Probably just because of the It's a Mimic fam I have, it was the art and the AI that was the biggest one that kind of...
Oh, Megan was incensed.
Yeah, it was in my face, and I totally understand, and I think it's probably one of the worst choices that they have made and mistakes they have made. So I feel like they're kind of addressing that in the sense that they are going back on that a bit, but they will always use AI. It's just they're making it a little bit less obvious.
I
think.
What they're doing is using AI to come up with the basic first draft of the art, and then they hand it to an artist and say, put your style on it or something. Right?
Yeah.
Some of it's clearly in an artist style and not AI at all. But some of them are like, I'm starting to get the generic feel of the D&D artistry and some of the work that they're doing now. And I'm like, oh, that was probably AI.
Yeah, at least started or like had a hand in it.
The pose of the person or the outline of the sword or whatnot that they then went in and cleaned up. But I do know that they use AI for a lot of the design choices and the book layouts and the text and whatnot, and then they go in with heavy editing afterwards. So it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting on first drafts.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, in 2024, 2025, like, you can't ignore the tools forever.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, but fine.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the new updated rules at all?
Yes. I also need lots of time to wrap my head around change. I don't know if you know this about me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes. And so at this point, I was gifted the new player's handbook for my birthday this year. Thank you, Adam, and It's a Mimic. So I am very excited because you flip through and then you're like, ooh, oh, that's fun. This is cool. So yes, I am excited for it and excited to like learn along with some new players as well and DM to some new players using the new rules.
I've actually had a chance to play one session as a player with the new rules. And only level 1, so it's fairly limited, but so far, no complaints yet.
Cool.
We'll see what a level 12 character looks like, right? But what's one thing that you hope that they change?
I hope you laugh about this. I was a person that generally could roll a lot poorly every time it came around to me in the table.
Kidding. No kidding.
So lots of times hours might go by at a big table because we usually had like 6 people at our table. And if I rolled like shit and then nothing happened for hours because my dice hated me, it sucked.
Yeah.
And so I know that they're kind of flexing that a bit in that things still happen when you roll poorly or you fail or there's like just add-ins to that.
Yeah.
And as much as it maybe diminishes the epic successes because it's like everybody wins, I got a participation ribbon.
Yeah.
It's, I think, going to help some of like the new players, especially that are really trying to love the game, but if their dice just is against them, they might get that like, I didn't enjoy this because I never got to do anything.
I cannot stress enough how shitty your dice rolling is. It is like you hear it sometimes on the Undead series where everyone else is getting like even like 8s and 11s and you come in with a 4 for the 3rd time in a row.
Yeah.
I have never, it defies, somewhere out there, there's the polar opposite of you. Just to like bring the entire cosmic scale even. And that person is a millionaire at a casino because you have rolled more natural ones than any person I've ever met. Yeah. And you're not even a fighter rolling 5 attacks with a D20. It's just like, it's mind-boggling. So it's funny that you say that.
Yeah. So I would like more people to get some participation ribbons. And I think that comes into play a little bit with the new book.
We're going to have a talk off mic about how you can pick other kinds of classes and other spells to force the dungeon master to do the rolling because you don't have to hit if I have to make a save.
Ah.
Right? Mm-hmm. There are some design choices like I don't know about the new one, but the Diviner in 5th Ed was all about re-rolling dice. Halflings had the lucky feat, which could re-roll dice. Like there were ways of getting around it and you just barreled ahead.
Yeah. I never played those ones.
No, not once.
No,
So-
never got to reroll
And now-
anything.
And now the 5th ed is done, and I know all of the ins and outs of it. We're gonna move on. So, at what point do you think you're gonna transition to the new rule set?
Well, I might be DMing for my partner and his niece and sister in January.
Nice.
And they are brand new to D&D.
So it's a good point.
Yeah, so that might be like a 1-shot or 2-shot where I dive in as a DM and try and help them with building a character from 5.5. So I guess I am switching right away in that aspect. But then I think I have a comfort level of doing that because I know what we're playing in our campaign will still finish with this, and we're...
The only reason we're not going to transition is because none of your guys' subclasses translate.
Yeah, and it would be a hard turn to switch, I think.
Yeah, and as much as it is backwards compatible, like you guys could fight the new monsters and we could use the new crit rules with your old characters, it's easier to just say no, this player's handbook, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm going to do with like my family's campaign as well, is they're not super high level, but I will let them decide whether they want to play these characters out and this campaign out in 5th edition.
Yeah.
And then if we start something new, can switch. I won't actually ask them. That will be how I say it. And they just have to accept. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I was like, nah, I'm going to make them finish that with this, and then we'll move into this. So maybe in a year or 2, I'll be fully in 5.5.
Well, we're all going to be in it by the summer, right? Because we're going to be transitioning from 5th edition to 5.5. We're in the middle of the transition period now. We haven't released a regular episode since near the end of November, right? And it's the end of January now, and we have a few months more so that people can get used to the hosts, can learn the rules, and get it in their brains.
Yes, I would also like that before I do heavy campaigns in it.
Fair enough.
I'm going to use that as my learning tool.
Yeah. But speaking of the transition, we are learning new things. We're changing our formats. We're doing a lot of new, exciting things moving forward. A lot of different topics to cover that we've never talked about before. But as we're getting all that set up, I want to take a little while to look backwards. Do you remember your first episode and what it was like?
I do. It was a Giants episode.
Of course, it was Giants 1, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I was so nervous. And thankfully, we started off with the whole plan of drinking wine with it.
Yeah.
Because I think we drank half or a whole bottle of wine before we started the first episode.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you did.
So, yeah. I remember being in Megan's little, apartment makeshift recording studio.
Yeah.
And just no confidence, not knowing whether I should be doing this or deserve to do this.
And 5 episodes later, you are absolutely shit-faced talking about fire giants battle skirts.
Yeah. And loincloths.
Yeah.
And
it's been all downhill since then.
Yeah. So I have to thank Megan for just allowing the chaos to reign in Giants and Wine, and
that's where she lives. She doesn't allow it to reign. She lives there.
Yeah, maybe thank her for allowing me to join her in that.
Yeah.
And then that honestly gave me the confidence of just me and her rolling through, getting familiar with how to do it. And so then I was way more comfortable than joining the rest of It's a Mimic on different episodes after that. But yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory of recording or being on the podcast?
One other episode that I was super nervous about was my very first mailbag episode.
Really?
And it was with all of the ladies of It's a Mimic for the first time. And so it was actually the first time I had talked on an episode with Peps.
Yeah.
And Miaca was just coming online doing more with the podcast. Mm-hmm. And we just got shit-faced.
Yes, you did. You guys got my poor wife absolutely fucking wrecked. She was unprepared for you seasoned alcoholics.
Yep. And it was just a joy. And we still talk about like the man in the jar.
That fucking man in the jar. I still hear about that about once a month.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was an unexpected favorite episode that I did just out of kind of nowhere for me. It was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I've never done one of these mailbag episodes. And then, yeah, here we are.
So before we go any further, I actually track a bunch of different stats.
I know you do.
Yeah. And I haven't done this for anybody else, but I think it would surprise you to know that at this point, we have had 18 different people that have been on multiple episodes. Do you know, one being me, because I've been on the most, and 18 being the least, where do you figure you sit in that scale, just from your number of episodes?
I would think I'm around 8.
You are 6th.
I am 6th.
Yeah, yes. You have actually passed Kyle, Tyler, who's done all of the campaign builders, and Brad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, more than Peps, more than Miaca.
Oh my god. I didn't think I would ever surpass Peps.
Yep. You have been in over, if someone clicks on the Casey only episodes, they can listen to it for 5 days and 6 hours.
Oh dear.
So, how does that feel?
Well, that is an honor to have that much airtime, but oh boy.
That's not necessarily you speaking the whole time.
Yeah, but
the
I'm
episodes
in it. Yeah.
So, now that you are actually one of the most prolific, the top third of the hosts, which I'm sure is shocking to you.
Yeah.
What has been one of the most challenging or upsetting parts of your history with It's a Mimic? Because everybody has had those days. I see it on your faces. You walk in, you're like, I don't fucking want to do this right now.
Yeah. Well, generally, I would say, like, for quite a while, Giants helped, but then I got in a comfort zone with Giants too. So when I branched out, it was immense imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah?
And especially if I was recording with some of the guys that I hadn't recorded with much, like I've only recorded with Dave like twice. And
that guy's just a piece of shit. You can ignore him. It's fine.
but I care about Dave.
Oh, you're the one.
And so it was the anticipation and the feeling like, even though I was prepared, I had done my homework, just potentially not knowing what I was talking about, or just feeling like I shouldn't be part of the conversation. So it wasn't necessarily a specific episode or anything like that. It was just getting comfortable with that. And some days it just hit me hard and I had to fake it till I, got halfway through the episode. And then I'm like, okay, this is fine.
I still think that we've got some of our hosts that are still fighting with that imposter syndrome. And it's a large reason why most of them cannot listen to their own voice.
I still can't.
I know. If I didn't edit, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. So that still rears its head off and on. It's better. But that was one, and just being a bit vulnerable, putting yourself out there was really hard, but I'm so glad I did it. And I'm so glad I just said yes anyway when you asked me to do not only the Giants episodes, but then more other series, and then with the regular podcast, because it was wonderful.
It has been a blast. You've been in 12.47% of our airtime, Casey. I tell you, I track shit.
So I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah. So, on the same vein, who's been your favorite host to record with? And you can't say me because that's self-serving for me, so I always remove myself. And you can't say Megan because you guys are partners in crime.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know.
With the two of you out of the running, I would have to say Miaca. And I really loved doing the Theros series with her because I actually got to see her grow into her love for not only the content but the comfort level in being in front of a mic.
Speaking about imposter syndrome, right?
Right? And I think maybe that was why I loved recording with her, because I felt what she was feeling. And we both kind of.
You guys went on a journey through that series.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think we at times forgot that we were recording because we were just talking about the lore and like those monsters that I got to talk about were incredible.
I could always tell because you guys would drop down to about this level when you talk. Because you're like, oh, and Casey also does this, right? Like, I know. And I'm like, fucking with the audio, and I'm sitting there trying to raise the volume one channel at a. You guys killing me on that one. But,
and those episodes got so long sometimes.
Oh, yeah. It was good.
Yeah.
That was not reflected in the final airing. Like, that's the other thing to point out, too. All of that is the aired stuff. So you've been on hundreds of additional hours, especially if undead.
Ramblings, oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel comfortable now, basically, with all of the It's a Mimic crew recording with them. But I think I felt a big connection with recording with Miaca. And I just really enjoy my time with her.
In your opinion, what's the episode that you're the most proudest of?
That's so hard.
Because you've done some pretty big ones.
Yeah. I will say I was actually most intimidated by the Drow series.
Oh, yeah?
But I am the most proud of the evolution through that series and what we were highlighting to try and avoid trying to pull the best out of what 5th edition brought for Drow, at the same time respecting the problems with Drow.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to kind of answer this, but I'm going to just say I'm most proud of like moving through the Drow series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it's there's one episode of the Undead series, and the first 4 episodes of the Drow series are the only episodes you've been on that I have not edited. And I haven't listened to them. I don't know. I picked up on episode 5 of the Drow series, so like I'm fine with that. But you trailed off at the end, so like
I did. Yeah.
I'm
I was front loaded on those.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to them. I never listen to the ones I don't edit because I don't have the time, but I'm gonna make a point just to keep the streak going. So we're heading into a huge transition period, and I'm sure that all the listeners are tired of me saying this at this point. But we are going to have the opportunity for a lot of people to come on board as we refocus and kind of join the ranks and step up in a lot of big ways, and a lot of opportunities for people to step down and go focus on other aspects of their lives. We are finishing off year 6 of this. It has been an undertaking, and most of the hosts have been here for multiple years, including you. Are you sticking around, or are you going to take an opportunity to announce a retirement?
Adam, you can't get rid of me. I have far too much to say now, and
Megan would stab me in the kidney.
she would be like, she doesn't get a choice. And I also feel like I do have not only a lot of just 5.5 to learn, but also a lot just to learn about myself and about podcasting. And so I want to be a part of the next phase.
Good, you're in charge of writing all the breakdowns and all of the editing from here on
Awesome.
out.
Okay, so we'll take a break until 2027.
All right. Well, I'm excited that you are going to continue forward. I have half built the schedule at this point, so I'm glad that doesn't fuck me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I hope that you have some time to play with a bunch of the new voices that are coming, as well as really maintaining the spirit of the Lady Mimics shit going forward. So, because you guys are wild.
We have a good time.
Clearly.
That's all for this episode of It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. If you'd like to reach out to us or find other places where you can listen to this podcast, please check the show notes below.